Before Cleopatra whispered to Caesar, before Jezebel painted her eyes, there was Semiramis, a woman so feared, so desired, that even history doesn't know what to do with her. Her name drips with seduction and blood. Some say she was the daughter of a goddess, others say she was a demon in the shape of a woman. But all agree she ruled like no woman ever had before. She built cities that scraped the sky. She conquered men with a glance, and in the most infamous night of her life, she invited 100 slaves into her chambers. By sunrise, every single one of them was dead. Who was Semiramis, a queen, a monster, or just a story men told to warn each other of what happens when a woman holds too much power? In this video, we journey into the myth, the madness, and the mystery. We'll explore the seductive legend of the queen who made empires tremble and who may have used her own bed as a Satterfield. Long before she ruled with an iron hand, Semiramis was a child of the impossible. Her story begins not in a palace, but in the depths of shame. Scandal and myth. Legend says her mother was no ordinary woman, but the goddess Dersto, a divine creature of the sea, beautiful, powerful, and dangerous. But Dersto did the unthinkable. She fell in love, or perhaps lust, with a mortal man from Syria. When she gave birth to Semiramis, she was filled with rage and regret. In shame, she murdered the child's father, then threw herself into the waters, transforming into a fish to escape her sin. And the child abandoned, alone, left to die by the river's edge. But fate had other plans. Semiramis was found by doves, yes, doves, who fed and protected her until a shepherd discovered her. She was raised in silence, in secrecy, growing not just in beauty, but in something else, something more dangerous, a hunger. Semiramis would never forget she was unwanted. She would never forgive being thrown away. And from that moment on, she swore she would never be powerless again. And so, from blood and betrayal, a queen was born. She had no royal blood, no father to protect her, no mother to guide her. Only her face, her mind, and her fire. Semiramis was sold as a slave, not uncommon in the brutal empires of the ancient world. But even as a servant, she stood out, not just for her beauty, but for the way she listened, and watched, and waited. She was taken into the court of one of the king's trusted generals, a powerful man, hardened by war, and yet, he fell to his knees before her. They say he took her as his concubine, but in time, she became something more. His obsession, his advisor, and, some say, the true hand behind his victories. When Ans conquered a rebellious city, he begged the king to meet the woman who had helped him win it. King Menes agreed, and when he laid eyes on Semiramis, he wanted her for himself. The king offered Ans a choice: give her to me, or lose everything. Ans, mad with jealousy and despair, took his own life. And just like that, the former slave girl became the queen of Assyria. But this was no fairy tale. Semiramis had learned one thing: in a world built by men, a woman must never beg. She must take. Other queens ruled beside their husbands. Semiramis ruled over them. When King Ninus died, some say mysteriously, Semiramis didn't grieve. She seized the throne. She did not ask for permission. She did not wait for approval. She declared herself queen of Assyria, not as a widow, but as a god among mortals. She expanded the empire with a hunger no man had dared. Built roads, cities, temples. She commanded armies, and no general ever questioned her. To her, love was a weakness. Men were tools, beautiful, strong, but disposable. They say she built Babylon, raised walls that touched the heavens, created hanging gardens that swayed in the wind like poetry. But those gardens were not just for beauty. They were symbols, reminders that anything men could dream, she could create or destroy. No one was safe from her ambition. Not kings, not gods, not even her own son. Semiramis wasn't just a ruler, she was a force, a myth in the making, with no limit but her own desire. And as her power grew, so did her need to remind the world she was untouchable. Babylon, a name whispered through history like a curse and a dream. Before Semiramis, it was a place of dust and tribes. After her, it was the center of the world. She didn't just build a city, she carved her will into the earth. Walls thick enough to hold back empires, gates taller than temples, and towers that clawed at the sky. But behind the beauty was brutality. Tens of thousands forced to labor, men who would never see their homes again. Some say the mortar was mixed with their blood, that her statues were polished with the bones of the dead. And then there were the hanging gardens, lush, green, unnatural, floating above the desert like a hallucination. Legend says she built them for a lover, or for herself, a reminder of a land she once longed for, or destroyed. But Semiramis wasn't interested in memories. She wanted worship. In Babylon, she didn't just rule. She reigned like a goddess, and demanded to be honored as one. But nothing comes without a cost. And for every stone that rose, a body fell. Babylon was her masterpiece, her monument, her mirror, beautiful, brilliant, and built with blood. It was a night whispered in fear, a night no one survived to tell, except those who watched the bodies being dragged away at dawn. Semiramis, now at the height of her power, issued a strange command: 100 young men slaves, soldiers, servants were to be brought to her private chambers. They were the strongest, most beautiful men in the empire, chosen like offerings to a goddess. No one knew why. No one dared ask. What happened behind those sealed golden doors? No one could see, but they could hear. Some say it was a ritual. Others say it was revenge, a declaration that no man could ever possess her, only be consumed by her. By morning, all 100 men were dead. No wounds, no blood. No one could explain how they died. Some claimed poison. Some whispered dark magic. Others believed they died from exhaustion, from being used and discarded like animals. She never spoke of that night. She never explained. She didn't need to. The message was clear. Her power didn't end at the battlefield. It reached into the bedroom, where no man left alive. It was the ultimate warning. Semiramis could give you paradise, but it might be the last thing you ever touched. In most tales, pleasure is a reward. With Semiramis, it was a sentence. The night of the 100 slaves wasn't just lust, it was a message. To her enemies, to her people, to history. She used the most intimate act. Not for love, not even for dominance, but for destruction. What kind of woman uses desire as a weapon? One who knows exactly how men fear being conquered. Not in war, but in pleasure. Some believed it was a magical ritual, a bloodless sacrifice to the gods of fertility and death. Others claimed she wanted to erase her past to punish the world that had once made her feel powerless. She became a mirror, reflecting men's hunger back at them, giving them everything they desired, and then taking it all away. Some queens used armies. Semiramis used touch, and with every man who fell in her arms, she carved her name deeper into legend. Pleasure, in her hands, was not love. It was punishment, and the cost was death. They came to her willingly. They begged to be chosen, and they died smiling. This wasn't seduction. It was execution, elegant, erotic, and absolute. They feared her. They desired her. And most confusing of all, they worshipped her. Semiramis didn't rule like a woman. She ruled like something beyond human. Beautiful, terrifying, and untouchable. In Persia, they called her a goddess. In Egypt, a sorceress. In Greece, a siren who devoured empires. She became the subject of obsession. Poets wrote about her lips. Generals feared her armies. And kings feared what she could take from them. But fascination is dangerous, especially when it blinds people to the truth. Was Semiramis truly divine, or did she simply master the art of illusion? Her power came not just from conquest, but from myth, from the mystery she wrapped around herself like silk. No one knew her next move. No one understood her fully, and that more than anything made her unstoppable. They feared her cruelty. They admired her brilliance. And some fell in love with the very idea of her. She didn't need armies to enslave men. Their minds were already hers. Semiramis was no longer just a queen. She was a symbol of power unchained, of femininity weaponized, of fear wrapped in fascination. Even centuries later, they would whisper her name. Not with hatred, but with awe. Most queens stayed behind palace walls. Semiramis rode into war. She led armies across mountains and deserts, crushing rebellions, toppling kings, and rewriting the rules of power. Her enemies expected softness. They met strategy. They expected seduction. They found steel. She was not a figurehead. She was the storm. In one campaign, she marched into India, a journey that would break lesser men. But even when her army was pushed back, she returned stronger, bolder, more feared than ever. Some say she had no mercy. Others say she had no equal. Her son, with growing resentment, he wanted power. But she was still the empire's heart and its blade. And when kings tried to challenge her, she didn't just crush them. She made examples of them. Every lover she took, every man who tried to dominate her, was either ruined, exiled, or buried. The message was simple: challenge her, and face not just defeat, but humiliation. She was not just a ruler. She was an empire made flesh. Her body, her voice, her legend, were weapons sharper than any sword. Even in peace, her presence was war. In the ancient world met its match, not in a warrior, but in a woman who knew exactly how terrifying a woman could be. She was a queen, but not one you could ever control. Every legend ends, but with Semiramis, no one knows how. Some say she grew old and frail, and her son, Ninus Gellus, bitter, forced her to step down. Others say she vanished, disappeared into the mountains. No body, no tomb, no farewell. And then, there are the myths. That she transformed into a dove and ascended to the heavens. That she was taken by the gods who created her. That she was never mortal at all. Babylon mourned her in silence. But no tears were shed in public, because mourning her was a risk. Even after her reign into Difid ever did, her presence lingered. Like perfume in a locked room. Like a curse, waiting to wake again. Was she murdered by her own son? Did she fake her death? Or did she simply become what she always wanted to be, a myth no man could touch? History offers no clear ending. Because perhaps, a woman like Semiramis never truly ends. She ruled through mystery, and in the end, she disappeared into It was Semiramis real, or was she something worse, an invention? The deeper we look, the more the lines blur between history, legend, and propaganda. She may have been a real queen Semiramis, widow of an Assyrian king, who ruled briefly in her son's name. But the woman in the myths, the queen who slept with 100 slaves and killed them, that was no historical record. It was something else, something darker. A tale built by fearful men-priests, scribes, historians to turn her into a warning. Because nothing terrifies patriarchy more than a woman who doesn't beg, doesn't apologize, and doesn't obey. So they made her monstrous. Turned her beauty into a weapon, her sexuality into sin, her power into poison. They needed her to be inhuman. Because if she was human, then she proved women could rule without mercy. Without men. The story of Semiramis was never just about her. It was about fear, the fear of feminine power unleashed. And so they turned her legacy into horror. Made her sleep with slaves, kill lovers, command armies like a tyrant. Because if they couldn't erase her, they would twist her. Semiramis became a story told in shadows, not to honor her, but to warn others like her. This isn't just ancient history. It's the anatomy of how power punishes women. Dare to rise too high. Centuries have passed. Empires have crumbled. Languages have vanished. But Semiramis, she's still here. Her name appears in whispers in books, myths, conspiracies. Some call her a demon queen. Others call her the first feminist icon. Religious writers linked her to sin and idol worship. Historians struggled to place her. Artists couldn't stop painting her. In secret societies and prophecy cults, her name is used as a symbol of corruption or female rebellion. But who was she, really? A powerful queen who defied the rules of her time, a myth created by fearful men, or something more enduring, a mirror reflecting whatever the world fears or desires? The truth is, Semiramis was never just one woman. She was an idea of beauty without apology, of strength without shame, of a woman who ruled not by permission, but by force of will. And though her story is wrapped in fantasy, the world still tells it, still fears it, still wonders, what if she comes back?